So how do you get her to want you? Well, I'm going to give you the secret. Here it is. It's really easy. You have to embody healthy masculinity. Because the feminine is attracted to the masculine, like north is attracted to south. And that attraction creates connection. But in order to get that, we have to understand how to embody healthy masculinity. I recently did this training on the 8 embodiments of healthy masculinity, and I want to share it with you on my YouTube channel because I think it'll help you start to understand what it really means to embody healthy masculinity. And when you do that, you will gain an attractive confidence that you won't be able to resist. So here we go, 8 embodiments to healthy masculinity. This is how you embody healthy masculinity, which is going to create massive attraction. 8 essential things that every guy should be implementing in their life and embodying in everything that they do. So embodiment is all about transformation, and transformation doesn't come from trying harder to be a good man. Transformation demands embracing a completely different way of viewing oneself, a complete paradigm shift. These 8 embodiments of the excellent man is reconstructing our thinking. We are no longer trying to be good men. We simply are good men because we embody healthy masculinity. Now, the word embodiment breaks down into 3 parts, and I'm going to talk about each one of those parts in the next few slides here. So, embodiment, these 3 things. And when we understand these 3 things and put them together, we understand the word embodiment. So the first section of the word embodiment is em. And em is a forming element. It means to bring something into a certain state. So examples would be the words like emancipate, emerge, emit, emotion. We're bringing something into a certain state. All right. So in this case, the state that we're bringing into ourselves is masculinity. So the first part is bringing ourselves into the state of masculinity. So the second part of the word embodiment is body. And we all know what body is. Body is the main part. You know, think about like the body of a car or the body of a document. Our body, when we talk about our body, is generally the fullness, the whole thing of our body. And so the second piece of the word embodiment is body, or the main part, the main thing. So if you take the first word of em, which is to bring into a certain state, the second word body. So what we're doing is we're bringing our body into a certain state. The third piece of the word embodiment is ment. And ment is a stem. It's something that's added to a noun to make it into a verb or an actionable item. It's the doing part. So like amazement, betterment. These are words that are taking a word like amaze and bringing it in from a noun into a verb. And so it's an actionable item. So the 8 embodiments are, first of all, bringing into a certain state the fullness of ourselves in an actionable item. So these are 8 things that we can do when we bring ourselves into the state of masculinity, that as we embody these healthy things in our lives, then we are able to become better men, better in relationships, better in friendships, better in our work, because we're embodying the fullness of our masculine self. So how do we embody healthy masculinity? What are some of the things that we need to do? And that's where these 8 items that I'm going to go over here are talking about exactly the things that we can do to start embodying healthy masculinity. And the first one is self-love. It's something that nice guys are terrible at. In fact, rule number 3 in the No More Mr. Nice Guy 30-day recovery journal is put yourself first. Now, nice guys really struggle with this because we tend to think that putting ourselves first is selfish, but it's not selfish. Putting yourself first is an act of self-love. And the first thing that we need to do to bring ourselves into the state of healthy masculinity is to start loving ourselves. See, we believe that we're unlovable and acceptable just the way we are. That's what we've been taught. That's what we've experienced in life. As we start doing the things to take care of ourselves and love ourselves and put ourselves first, what actually happens is we feel more lovable. And when we feel more lovable, we're able to love others better. So practical things here to think of. Number one, you've got to love yourself enough to take care of your physicality. All right. This is something that I struggle with. During COVID, it was, things kind of got out of hand. I think they did for everybody. I put on weight and, you just kind of like didn't care so much about my appearance and those kind of things. And so loving myself enough to take care of my physicality. So going to the gym, eating right, taking care of my body. And there's a body-mind connection. As I'm taking care of my body, I'm feeling better about myself. So one of the most loving things I can do for myself is actually take care of my body. So if that's something you struggle with, I encourage you to get back up on it. Start going to the gym. Start, get a haircut, get a shave, put on some nice clothes, and you'll be amazed at how different you feel and how you'll really start embodying masculinity in a different way. Love yourself enough to take care of your emotional state. We treat ourselves so poorly. We talk to ourselves in ways that we would never talk to another human being. Why is that? Well, again, going back to that belief that I'm unlovable and acceptable just the way that I am, I start beating myself up emotionally. If you love something, you don't destroy it. You don't bring it down. You don't talk badly about someone you love. So to love yourself means to start speaking to yourself kindly and embodying the emotions of love towards yourself. And then finally, take care of your spirituality. And by your spirituality, I'm not talking necessarily about God and religion or anything like that, but I'm talking about the things that are bigger than yourself, your values, the things that are important to you, your virtues, okay? So love yourself enough to do the right things. Love yourself enough. Put yourself first. It's not selfish. It's not. It's an act of self-love. The second embodiment to healthy masculinity is integrity. I touched on that in the last slide about spirituality. Integrity is actually integration. Everything is working together. Rule 20 in the No More Mr. Nice Guy 30-Day Recovery Journal is live with integrity. Do what feels right to you and then do it. Okay? One of the things that we don't do as nice guys is we don't live with integrity. Instead, we're compromising all of the time our different virtues and values. So integrity is actually integration, which is the integrated man, of all of our parts, our spiritual parts. So spirituality, I'm talking about things like courage, assertiveness, tenacity, loyalty, wisdom, honesty, humility, gratitude, temperance, excellence, patience, self-mastery, justice, empathy, grace, and forgiveness. And all of these things that I'm doing together, when I do all of these things, I'm in integrity. Now think about it. Think about it when you're out of integrity. All right. Let's say courage is one of your values, but you want to have a conversation with somebody, but you're afraid, and so you don't. And so you don't act courageously. How do you feel? Well, you feel kind of crappy. All right. What about assertiveness? You want something, all right, but you don't do it. You shrink back. How do you feel? Again, not so great. So to be fully embodied is to be integrated, okay? And integrity is an internal balance system that keeps us in spiritual alignment, right? Back when I was 16 years old, I got my first car. It was a 1972 Ford Ranchero, and it was a beautiful 351 Cleveland, mag wheels, dual exhaust, posi traction, for all of you car enthusiasts out there. What it was my dream car at 16 years old. And I had that car less than 15 minutes, and somebody ran into it and, ran right into the front of the car. My grandfather at the time was a body man, and he helped me put it back together and restore it. And it looked actually even better than it did to begin with. But what happened was I took it out on the freeway, and as I was on the freeway, it started getting faster. And the car started shaking just all over the place. And I pulled over to the side of the road and looked around, couldn't figure out what was wrong. Got on the road again, same thing. And so I went home and called my grandfather, and he said, what probably happened is one of your wheels was out of balance. The little weight on the wheel probably got knocked off when you were in the accident. So I took my wheels in, got them balanced, and lo and behold, the car drove great. And that's what going on with integrity is about, being in balance. These components of integrity and being in balance with them. The third embodiment of healthy masculinity is internal validation. Rule number 7, you're the only person on this planet responsible for your needs, wants, and happiness. Okay? You are responsible for your own validation. When you seek validation from outside, from somebody else, it's great. It feels good when we're validated. Absolutely. The problem is when someone validates us, we give them the power inadvertently to invalidate us. So if they say something to us that, is less than flattering, what do? We get butthurt, we get upset, we get sensitive. And that's because we're not seeking internal validation. The masculine does. One of the masculine things that Dr. Glover talks about is it's masculine to seek internal validation. So what are our needs? Well, number 1, internal validation comes from doing. It's doing good things. It's taking care of ourselves, taking care of our body, taking care of your space, making sure it's cleaned and organized, taking care of the things that, for example, your car, what does your car look like? Taking care of your body, do you need to go to the dentist? Do you need to go to the eye doctor? Take care of these things. That comes from doing. As we do that, we're internally validated. When I go to the gym, at the end of my session, I'm always like, good job, Chuck. I'm internally validated because I did this thing that was kind of difficult to do. I really didn't want to do it, but I overrode it and went ahead and did it anyway. Internal validation, like I mentioned, is masculine. It comes from within. External validation is the feminine. That's the way the balance between the masculine and feminine. So by doing good things, we create self-esteem, good self-esteem. One of my mentors used to tell me, if you want good self-esteem, you've got to do esteemable acts. So act with integrity, and you will start to find the internal validation, which increases the love for yourself and increases the way you show up in the world with your confidence. The fourth embodiment is sexuality. And this is something with us nice guys we struggle with. The idea that we are sexual beings, that we like sex, that we want sex. The nice guy seduction is, I'm going to be really nice and then hopefully she'll have sex with me. I'm not going to bring forth my sexual agenda because I'm afraid of rejection. But when we do that, when we're not embodying our sexuality, what we're doing is we're killing the attraction and the attachment. So don't do anything in secret. Nice guys are full of shame, specifically around their sexuality. Most of us grow up learning that sex is bad or naughty or a sin. And so we start hiding that aspect of ourselves. And we have to clear out the shame, the sexual shame, in order to really fully embody our own sexuality. So how do we do that? Well, number 1, Dr. Glover says to release sexual shame and fear, the recovering nice guy must expose every aspect of his sexual self to safe and supportive people. This is why it's so important to have a tribe of men, friends, a best friend, a mentor, a coach, a therapist, someone that you can talk to about these deep, dark secrets that you have about your own sexuality. And what I found is that when we expose those parts of ourselves, we start to realize that we're not alone and we're not so weird as we thought in our own sexual interests and that kind of thing. So don't do anything in secret. Expose your own sexual desires is the first thing that you can do to embrace your sexuality. Number 2, Dr. Glover says, before a nice guy can have exciting, passionate, and a fulfilling sexual experience with other people, they must learn how to have the same with themselves. And this is what healthy masturbation is all about. How can you love someone else if you don't know how to love yourself? And that includes all aspects. Physically loving yourself. That means creating intimacy with yourself. So rather than having fantasies around pornography and images and videos and all that kind of thing, what we want to do is we want to have a sexual experience. We're completely focusing on our own enjoyment. We got to get out of our heads, out of the fantasy, and into our bodies, and connecting with our bodies in a very sexual way. And once we learn to do that, we start getting rid of the sexual shame. The third thing Dr. Glover says is that until a nice guy can be sexual with himself without shame, he won't be able to be sexual with another person without shame. Now, this is key because sexual shame gives us, it stops us from having a full experience of intimacy. So I have to get rid of my sexual shame. I have to be able to have sex with myself without shame and feel good about it. Not having any of those secrets, talk about it, expose it to the safe person. And then when I'm with another person and I'm experiencing sex with them, I'm not going to have the shame that goes along with having sex with another person. And number 4, Dr. Glover says that until a nice guy can be sexual with himself without using pornography, fantasy to distract himself, he won't be able to have sex with someone without needing similar things to distract him. Okay? So if you need fantasy, if you need pornography in order to become aroused and stay aroused, what'll happen is when you have an experience with someone else, with another partner, you won't be able to be fully present with them. So you won't actually be experiencing the sexual moment with your partner. You'll be experiencing sex with some imagery that you have, the old spank bank or whatever, right? And so if you're not able to, not use pornography so that you can practice this healthy masturbation, when you're with another person, you're going to have the same thing, which is going to create more shame for yourself. So we have to get rid of the sexual shame. We have to embrace our sexuality, embody the sexuality, right? We bring our bodies into that state of masculine sexuality, and it's a verb, the ment part of it, where we're actually doing that and we're being sexual. The 5th embodiment to healthy masculinity is leadership. Again, something nice guys struggle with, all right? We don't like taking the lead. We'd rather follow, most of us, than to be out there and lead. Because to take leadership is a risk, right? Because what if you fail? Everybody sees that. They laugh at you or whatever, right? So taking leadership is a risk. And there's a lot of tension around that idea of taking risk. We would rather just sort of sit back and let somebody else take the responsibility and follow their lead. The problem is when we get into relationships with the feminine wants you to lead, all right? And she may pretend like she doesn't want you to lead, but ultimately she wants you to lead. She wants to know that she can trust you to lead her in a healthy way. So leadership, the embodiment of leadership, is we have to not be afraid to fail rather than being afraid of failure, just understanding that failure is a part of developing leadership. There is no failure. There are only learning opportunities, okay? What would you do if you knew for certain you couldn't fail, right? You knew for 100% you can't fail, okay? Well, there is no failure, only learning experiences. So wrap your head around that for a second. You are not going to fail. You're simply going to have a learning experience, which is going to give you input on what to do better next time. So practice that. Set the tone and take the lead. What are you doing if you are not setting the tone and taking the lead? Is you're giving the power over to your partner to set the tone and take the lead. And we all know what happens when that happens is she oftentimes gets cranky because she doesn't want to set the tone and take the lead. She wants you to be in your masculine. Have a vision and inspire others to the vision. We have to know where we're going. Part of leadership is being able to see into the future and say, this is where we're going. I want to take my partner into the fullness of our life. I want to build a life with my partner. And in order to do that, I have to have a vision of what that looks like. What kind of lifestyle do we have? What kind of family do we have? What kind of things do we do? I have to have a vision for that. And I have to set the tone and take the lead in creating that vision and expressing that vision to my partner. The second part of leadership is provider and protector. The masculine does, it penetrates. And so we have to penetrate lovingly through leadership the people around us. And when we do that, when we're able to lovingly and kindly direct people and influence people and lead them, that builds confidence in ourselves, and that builds confidence in others about ourselves. The sixth embodiment is discipline. Okay. And discipline is something that nice guys struggle with. I do. All my life, I've struggled with being disciplined. In fact, oftentimes when I talk to nice guys and I'm coaching them, they will just say, if I could just be more disciplined in my exercise, if I could just be more disciplined in reading good books, if I could just be more disciplined in taking care of myself. Discipline is something we often struggle with. And the reason we struggle with it is because oftentimes we think of discipline as being a punishment. Okay. And it's not a punishment. Discipline is not punishment. Discipline is actually doing what we want to do for ourselves and doing it consistently. Okay. So rule number 6 is if you do what you've always done, you'll get what you've always got. So to be disciplined actually means to be a disciple, submitting yourself to goodness, submitting yourself to something bigger than yourself. To be disciplined means that I take these 8 embodiments, physical, emotional, spiritual elements of the embodiments, and I work on discipling myself, learning to be in these states, practicing these things, right? Remember, there's no failure. There's only learning opportunities. So I'm not going to fail at this. I'm simply learning how to be disciplined. And when I'm disciplined, I'm in a state of masculinity. Discipline is important because discipline will help you with the foundation in your relationships, which is trust. Okay. If you're undisciplined in your life, how can your partner trust you? You say you're going to do something, but you don't do it. What does that do? That's going to create all kinds of anxieties and uncertainties for your partner because they see you doing something, say you're going to do something, and then you're undisciplined and you stop doing it. And then they say to themselves, how can I trust a man who is undisciplined? So it's a very important component of an embodying healthy masculinity is to actually practice that discipline. Discipline is doing what you say you're going to do. So if you say you're going to go to the gym, you go to the gym. If you say you're going to pick her up at 8, you pick her up at 8. If you're going to study a book or something like that, you study the book. If you're going to take a class, you do the class. You finish the class. That's what discipline is. Embodiment number 7 is brotherhood. This is the doing act of seeking other men to help you in embodying your healthy masculinity. Okay, iron sharpens iron. Like attracts like. If you're with the feminine all the time, you're not going to be developing that healthy masculine part of yourself. You need other men to help you embody your masculinity. Okay. So rule 14 is let other people help you. And nice guys are terrible at this. We don't like other people helping us. Actually what we don't like is asking for help. Right? Because if I ask for help, what's going to happen is it's a possibility of being rejected or people thinking poorly about us or something, wondering why we can't do something on our own or why we need to have help. It makes us feel weak, but it's actually a real strength to ask for help. By creating a network, a tribe of other men in your life, you have people to call on that can help you. So don't go it alone. Find some men. Find some men that you can relate to. There's 3 relationships I think that every man should have. All right. And that's a mentor, an ally, and a disciple. All right. So a mentor is somebody that's generally probably older than you, who's got more experience than you. Having that man, that father figure speak into your life, somebody you can go to for wisdom and guidance and mentorship. The The second thing is an ally, somebody who is right there with you, a brother, the guy that's in your foxhole. This is your ally. This is your guy that it's 3 a.m. in the morning and life is just falling apart. This is the guy you call. This is your ally. This is your best friend, so to speak. And then you want to have disciples, other people that younger than you, where you're being the mentor. The easiest, best, most effective way of learning anything is by teaching it. That's one of the reasons I love this job so much, is it really helps me teach other men. And as I teach other men, it starts to install it and instill it into my own life. So find somebody, maybe somebody younger, less experienced, just starting out in their recovery, and work with them. It's a really important component. Masculinity bestows masculinity. Femininity does not bestow masculinity, right? And there's nothing wrong with femininity, but we need to work on embodying healthy masculine and healthy masculinity. Embodiment number 8, the final embodiment, is boundaries. Oh my gosh. Boundaries are something that us nice guys struggle with. Why? Because if I set a boundary with someone, they might not like me, all right? And if they don't like me, that's only evidence and proof to the fact that I'm unlovable and acceptable just the way that I am. So we typically let people kind of walk all over us, and then we wonder why people are walking all over us. I'm such a nice guy. Why do people take advantage of me? Well, it's because you don't have any boundaries. Now, boundaries are an act of love. Okay. Boundaries are what keep airplanes flying in the sky, and what keep cars driving on the right side of the road, and what keep your neighbor from coming into your yard and stealing things. Boundaries are an act of love because they give other people the limits to know where they can go and where they can't go. So rule 17 is remove yourself from bad situations instead of waiting for situations to change. This is the cornerstone of all boundary settings, is this, that your boundaries are only as good as your ability and your willingness to remove yourself from the situation. Okay? So if a situation is bad and you've set a boundary, your option at that point then is to remove yourself from the situation. And when you remove yourself from the situation, what you're doing is you're saying, I'm not going to allow you to cross my boundaries. So if someone's treating you poorly and you say stop, and they continue to treat you poorly, they continue to try to break through your boundary, you can simply say to them, if this behavior continues, I'm going to remove myself from the situation. It takes that masculine strength to set boundaries, to be able to have the courage, the internal fortitude, to be able to say, I don't like that, please stop. And what I'm doing when I'm doing that is I'm actually loving myself and I'm loving the other person, because I'm letting them know what the limits are. If they don't know what the limits are, then they're going to treat me however I let them treat me. I teach people how to treat me based on my boundaries. So boundaries are extremely important. All right. You'll see there's a boundary video in the members area that you can look at too, that I did a couple years ago on setting boundaries, and that might be something good for you to review. So to wrap it all up here, integrated masculinity is embodiment. Okay, we have all of these different components, and they're all working together in integration. And when they all work together in integration, we are embodying healthy masculinity. We're bringing our body into the state of healthy masculinity. Dr. Glover says an integrated male doesn't strive to be perfect or gain the approval of others. Instead, he accepts himself just as he is, warts and all. An integrated man accepts that he's perfectly imperfect. One of the things I find that my nice guys who I work with struggle with the most is trying to do nice guy recovery perfectly. Just like that. I mean, I made mistakes. I make mistakes in the way that I speak and talk. So don't try to do it. Don't strive for perfection. Rather, strive for accepting yourself, warts and all. The fact that you stutter, the fact that you, don't say the right things sometimes. Just accept that. It's just part of you being human. And the more you accept yourself and your flaws, you'll start to love yourself more. And ultimately, I think that's what healthy masculinity is I love myself from this place of masculine strength so that I show up in the world fully integrated. People can trust me. People can rely on me. I can rely on me, and I can rely and trust myself. That's such an important thing. So I hope you've enjoyed this little presentation on the 8 embodiments of healthy masculinity. Thanks so much for joining me today, and I'll see you at the next training video.